Good morning, Taiba.
Good morning, Stuart.
Right, I'm Stuart Black. I'm with Taiba Bajar. Taiba is the founder of Autism Brain Empowerment, at the forefront of a transformative movement with a mission to empower all parents to unlock their autistic children's potential to reach their developmental milestones and help them to become confident leaders and thrive in this world. At the heart of autism brain empowerment lies a profound belief that a child's potential should never be confined by labels. Taiba champions the incredible capacity of neuroplasticity, leading the change in unlocking the power to rewire and reshape young minds. She offers a revolutionary approach to unleashing the boundless potential within every child. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Taiba.
Thank you, Stuart.
Was there a pivotal moment that led you to embark on the journey of starting Autism Brain Empowerment? And,
Yeah.
and what is your mission?
Okay, so for me, the pivotal moment in my life, which led me to starting Autism Brain Empowerment, is the journey I had with my own son. So he's 5.5 years old now, but when he was 2.5 years old, he started experiencing severe autism symptoms. So he wouldn't, he was non-verbal, he wouldn't eat at all, he'd had one bite of food every few days, and he was so skinny because of that. He was very anxious, having a lot of accidents, and the list goes on of what severe autism symptoms looked like for him. And I turned to my GP and I just got brushed off, and they just said that children can change a lot at this young age, and they don't diagnose autism until they're at least 5 years old. I went to my health visitor and she did take me seriously, but all she did was add me to a bunch of waiting lists. So I was added to speech and language waiting list, physio waiting list, OT waiting list, and a dietitian waiting list, and a lot of those waiting lists never even got back to me. So it just became really clear that I will be the person that needs to help my son. No one else is going to help me, and I don't want to watch him lead this life. So I had to do something about it. So I actually have 2 science degrees from the University of Bristol, and as part of those degrees I studied neuroscience. So I already knew that there was a great potential in the brain to change, especially in its early years. So where I was just getting brushed off and saying, we're not going to give you any support until he's at least 5 anyway, and give you that, and even then there's not much support after the age of 5 in the UK. I just dived straight into the research and looked into everything, did every course under the sun, read every book under the sun, and then devised my own program to help my child. And when he was about 3.5 years old, he started putting 2 words together and he started to eat more. And then when he was 4.5 years old, he had completely transformed, no anxiety, completely unrecognizable to people who knew him earlier. And then since then, I've always been giving parents of autistic children lots of advice, and then I just saw that there was this gap in the community to support parents to help their own child. So that's where Autism Brain Empowerment came from.
Okay, so you decided to become your own expert.
Yeah.
Out of a realisation that the expertise wasn't available.
Yeah.
To help you. Okay, interesting. So in your interactions with parents, what are the common misconceptions about autism that you find yourself dealing with or dispelling?
Okay, so sadly, the most common misconception that is very, very widespread is that a child is born with autism or they're born with ADHD and they're going to be like this forever. There's no acknowledgement that you can rewire your child's brain, especially while it's growing so rapidly in the early years. So there's no acknowledgement of neuroplasticity at all. And I find that from SEND specialists as well, where they're just happy to treat the symptoms and not treat the root cause. So that's what's different in my program. I look at the root causes of autism and treat them. So I do that through supporting the gut, really. So the gut-brain connection is it's becoming more well-known, thank goodness. But basically looking at gut health and fixing the child's gut. And then also through, the second way we do that as well is through a program of heavy metal detoxification. So in this world, we are actually surrounded by so many heavy metals, which we are breathing in, putting on our child's skin, and eating, and we're just completely unaware of the effects that it's having. Just last week I was explaining to a parent that their child could be getting, in 2024, sadly, they can be getting lead poisoning from playing with electronic toys. So even after the EU passed a law in 2009 to say that we have a limit on how much lead is going to be put on in children's toys, if a child mouths a toy, it can still leak lead inside them, which is causing so many symptoms, and parents are just unaware of how toxic this environment is.
Wow.
And autistic children generally have a lower ability to detoxify themselves compared to a neurotypical person. So they will show with autism symptoms. So my program is different from mainstream, how they teach, how they say that we should help autistic people, because my program addresses the root causes of autism and really changes lives and changes family lives.
That's scary about lead. You're probably not old enough to remember this, but there was what happened in the 1970s, late 70s and early 80s, was crime rates soared.
Oh, really?
Around the world. And later on, they realised it was because they put lead in petrol.
See, that's
and they know this because when they look at when lead was introduced in petrol and then when it was taken out of the petrol, that happened at different times in different countries, but the correlation with the crime rates going up and then dropping down was the same.
Yeah. So that's just so sad that these heavy metals does have an effect on people's behaviour, and it's just not acknowledged at all. It's just that's very. And
very
when
sad. You're looking at gut health
Yeah.
and heavy metal toxicity, does that involve testing?
Yeah. So we do testing as well. So so as part of the plan, we go through a personalised approach for each child. Alongside that, there are some general guidelines, like just how to adopt a healthier diet for yourself and for your child. For example, a lot of autistic children actually have a gluten sensitivity and a dairy sensitivity, and also the human body, we're not actually adapted to eating a ultra high processed food diet, which I think over 70% of a British person's diet comes from ultra high processed foods, which is foods that are made in factories. So our gut microbes are not adapted to doing that. So just making these small changes can give you some really quick wins as well. But I've got like a whole program and a whole framework. And yes, it does include testing if it needs to be. So I've worked with gut specialists who can provide that.
Okay. So can you give us some examples of children and families that have experienced transformational change when they've been undertaking your program?
Yeah. So there's one of my favourite examples is of a non-verbal child who, after just 6 weeks of working with me, they've been able to say the word mama and dada after 6 weeks, which has been so amazing for the child and for the family, and just shows that their child is not stuck like that forever. You can do something about it to help them, and they have an amazing potential to learn, and to learn quickly if they're in the right environment.
So do you encounter skepticism or resistance, in terms of your program, and how do you handle that?
Okay, so the main skepticism I find from, actually there's two main types, but one of the main skepticisms is that I'm shaming autistic people and saying that there's something wrong with them and they need to be changed. So you're probably familiar with the whole neurodiversity movement that's going on around the world. And that movement is great because we should embrace and include everyone in society. Wholeheartedly agree with that. But the families I work with, they are, so stressed out because their child's not eating, their child's not talking, their child's having accidents and wetting themselves and pooing themselves, at 4 years old, 5 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. And that child is so anxious in public environments. So there is a real need there to actually give these families a lot of help and support, and to really help that child, and not just say, it is part of diversity, it's neurodiversity, just you should embrace it. and find out what your child's strength is. These families are really, really struggling, and there's no one really out there to help them.
Right. So what you're saying is one of the challenges with the sort of neurodiversity movement, the I would say the intention is that people are accepted as they are and not discriminated against, and people are not you do not prejudge them or prejudiced against them. But what you're saying is there is also a school of thought that what they want to do is accept the labels for what they are, and that those labels don't change.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, hang on, it's all very well to accept people as they are, but that doesn't mean they can't change and become more highly functioning and make a greater contribution and indeed be happier.
Absolutely. In fact, this whole movement of labels, like I've been to so many events where people introduce themselves with their labels. I have ADHD, by the way. I have autism, by the way. And labels can be really good at helping you understand yourself, but they can also be really limiting on your mindset and your mind frame. When I was 23, so 11 years ago, I was diagnosed with, I was on the spectrum as well, diagnosed with on the autism spectrum, but I don't really suffer many symptoms from that in 2024, so in my present day. And I was diagnosed with dyspraxia. And I feel like with those two labels, I put myself in a box. So I was like, okay, well, and I started limiting myself. So I used to really enjoy learning Bollywood choreography dances growing up. It's actually a lot of it's a habit and a tradition that a lot of Pakistani and Indian children grow up with in households, learning choreographed dances. And then, so I did really enjoy that growing up. But then as soon as I learned I had dyspraxia, I was like, oh, that's why it always took me a bit longer to learn a dance, and I'm never going to be as good as anyone else now because I've got dyspraxia. So I just stopped trying, and I put myself in a box. Or if there was a team working exercise or an exercise where I'm meeting someone and I'm like, oh, well, I'm stereotypically autistic people struggle with those situations, so I just wouldn't bother going. So labels can be good at helping yourself to understand yourself, but really bad at limiting yourself. And these days there is a movement where people just introduce themselves with their labels, and that's something I don't believe in. I believe you can change. You have a great capability and potential to change, and you shouldn't limit yourself with a label.
That's very interesting, because I remember that about 2013, just after, around about the time DSM-5 was issued, the National Institute for Mental Health in the United States said, this is just a dictionary of labels, and it isn't actually helpful. People with mental health issues deserve better than this, and we're not going to invest any more money in this sort of research, creating more diagnoses, because it's not good use of taxpayer dollars. Hasn't changed the medical world much, I don't think, but I think I forget the name of the guy now, but I think he was coming from the same perspective, that labels have a limited utility. Okay, and what do you hope that, you maybe just touched upon this actually, what impact do you hope that autism brain empowerment have on this broader conversation around neurodiversity in the coming years?
So I think the main mission for autism brain empowerment is to empower parents to help their own children. So that is my main mission, and to also realise that they can help their own children and their children can change, and that there's nothing wrong with change. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with being autistic, but those symptoms, those debilitating symptoms, you can change them. So that's my main mission of autism brain empowerment, to help parents to help their own children. And I'd also would really like it if we could like I said before, just break free from some of these labels, from being so limiting on a person. So being able to, I think if I had learned about neuroplasticity at 23, when I learned I had dyspraxia and autism, I would be a different person. I wouldn't have had much anxiety in my 20s as I did, and I would have a lot more confidence if I had learned about neuroplasticity the same day I learned about my label. So that's something I would like to change.
I also understand that you integrate mindfulness and emotional intelligence into your coaching program. How does that work?
Okay, so for parents, it comes from addressing limiting beliefs. So often when they find out their child has autism, and before they discover my method, they put limiting beliefs on their own child. So it's about addressing their limiting beliefs, because you've probably heard of the saying that talk to your child as if they're the kindest, most wisest person in the whole world, because what they believe is what they're going to become. So in that same way, like, I go through a limiting belief exercise with the parents to make sure that they're not putting their own limiting beliefs on children. There's also another part of the program where we address the parent stress levels. So stress is contagious. Not many people know that. And it goes from top down. So in a family system, the parents' stress levels is contagious to the children. And like you said, that will contribute to a dysregulated nervous system. So it's looking at that. And then for the children, it's a program of helping them understand emotions. So it would be understanding the wide spectrum of emotions and labeling them. And so like, oh, this is rejection, this is anger, this is jealousy. Because once you label an emotion, you almost get rid of the power of the emotion. And you can also recognize it in other people. So building children's emotional intelligence, which in the age of AI, I think is how humans are going to differentiate themselves. That human-to-human connection is something that will differentiate humans from AI. So it's something that it's a skill that we should be actively teaching children.
Okay. Can I ask what your program looks like in terms of what level of commitment do people need to make? How long does it take? How much does it cost? Can you help with those questions?
Yeah, sure. So it's a 6-month program, and with an option to extend afterwards if they prefer. And how the program looks like is that there is an assessment at the beginning, and addressing, and then we help address the parents' mindset and limiting beliefs before we even start the program. We look at the child's gut health. There's a program of detoxification, emotional intelligence in there as well, building oxytocin in the family, and which is the love hormone, and if there's any supplements that we need and any testing that needs to be done, building all of that in the child. So with the aim that your child will have reversed all of their autism symptoms within 6 to 9 to 12 months, and you adopt a whole new lifestyle for the child going forward, which is going to help their physical health and their mental health going forward. And in terms of pricing, so I offer a free half-an-hour discovery call, and then we both different packages, which are for different families.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And in your interactions with parents, what has been the most surprising or unexpected result, of the impact you've had on their lives?
Okay, so that's a good question. So I think what's actually been so great is that when you live with an autistic child, often that is all the parent thinks about. They will sleep thinking about autism. They will talk, all they talk about with their partner is autism. All they talk about with their friends is autism. And it's just a massive, massive stress and concern for the family. And it has an effect on the other siblings as well. So doing my work and seeing that stress lift from the parents and lift from the family has been the most rewarding part of my job. And the parent can have a new life again with the family and take those family holidays, go to those family celebrations without a sensory meltdown. So seeing that stress lift from families is the most impactful thing I do.
Okay. How would people find out more about your service?
Okay, so my main platform is Instagram. So if they search Autism Brain Empowerment, they can find me on Instagram. And I've also got a YouTube channel called Autism Brain Empowerment, and a website, www.autismbrainempowerment.com. So those are the 3 main ways that you can contact me.
Well, that's been fascinating. Thank you so much, Taiba. Anything else you'd like to add? What else should I have asked you?
I think you've pretty much covered it. I've also got a book coming out, which my book, Autism Elimination, 7 Steps to eliminate and reduce the symptoms of autism in your child. It's coming out in November 2024.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stuart. Great conversation.